everyone, Ashley May and Nicole Russo here with the Daily Racing Form, taking a look at a Kentucky Oaks points race this Saturday out at the fairgrounds, March 22nd. It's race number 11, the Grade 2 Fairground Oaks, mile and a 16th on the main track for the 3-year-old fillies. And Nicole, as we take a look at this field, obviously, I don't want to say just the only big name. The biggest name probably is the 7 Good Cheer, but a couple of others that are interesting types. You have Gowell's Delight for Kenny McPeak, Ahava, a very impressive maiden winner in her laugh, who overcame some trouble last time out on the Suncoast to run second.
Yeah, a lot of fillies in here who have been knocking at the door, some very nice efforts, very nice stakes placings, developing horses. But yeah, as you said, the headliner in here is Good Cheer, unbeaten, really untested, and the clear favorite on the Oaks future wager recently conducted. She'll look to roll into the Kentucky Oaks unbeaten in this prep, which offers 100 points to the winner, 50 points to second. You really expect to see a couple of these fillies coming out of here, moving on to the Kentucky Oaks.
We'll take a look at the time form U.S. pace projections here for the Fairgrounds Oaks, and you can see Ahava coming out of that 6 furlong event. She was flashy in there off the gate. She could be part of the early pace scenario. And then the conversation about the 5, her laugh. Nicole, I mentioned it kind of as a preview. The Suncoast, she missed the break. She was able to close from off of it. But I would think, looking at her races prior to that on paper, she could be somewhat forward from the gate and maybe tracking just off of it.
Yeah, I definitely expect her to show a little more foot if she gets away from the gate well. And certainly you mentioned Ahava, the half sister to the Grade 1 winning sprinter Vava. We'll see if she can stretch out a little bit, but certainly a very sharp horse, a very interesting horse.
In the LP, the late place flag is attached to the number 9 Quickick in here, who is the outside runner. We'll kick it off, though, with the number 1 Girl Math, who did scratch out of the Virginia Oaks and opted for this spot instead. And it's kind of interesting as we look at her, Nicole, in terms of what we saw in her last 2. They kept her at Turfway on a different surface, and she's going to transition back to the dirt where she had some good performances. She just wasn't getting it done.
Yeah, and it's funny because, she's really bred to perform well on the dirt, being by McKinsey, who was a very hot freshman sire last year with a couple of Grade 1 winners from his first crop. Her career best effort, though, did come on the Tapeta at Turfway, beat a next out winner while earning her career high buyer.
You note that Flavian Pratt, who's been red hot last year and continues the trend now in 2025, will climb aboard her for the 3rd time. The number 2, Gowell's Delight, another one that we saw entered in the Virginia Oaks. She scratched as well. Kenny McPeak just mentioned that this race card was drawn that same day, and they opted for this spot to keep the fillies separated. Want to get your kind of thoughts on the Rachel Alexandra. She just came up second best. She was part of the pace. And does she have the ability maybe to turn things around here on Good Cheer?
I really think so. I like that she has a ton of seasoning around 2 turns. All her races are at a mile and a 16th. Her best races have come on this track. Her only unplaced effort, the Martha Washington at Oaklawn, where she really had some trouble, didn't have room for a good portion of the race. If you draw a line through that race, she's got a very strong resume.
The number 3, Ahava, you mentioned the pedigree here, a big pedigree. She was able to win on debut. Is at the 6 furlong distance. She got a flashy figure for it, an 81 buyer speed figure. It looked like it was a fairly easy win for her, but this is obviously a big test now going against fillies that are a little bit more seasoned and also have that experience already going around 2 turns.
Yeah, and the exciting thing about her is I think as well regarded as she was before that debut, she's come out of that first start and has worked very strongly. And I love seeing that with lightly raced horses, age 2, age 3, where they come out of their first race and they work strongly. It says to me, the light bulb is going on. I like what I'm doing. I'm figuring out this game. She is a half 2 Grade 1 winning sprinter, Vava, but Sire City of Light has thrown some very good 2-turn horses, including Fierceness.
The 4, Jenkin, up next here, a daughter of Mineshaft, who is kind of on a roll at Oaklawn Park. She was able to break her maiden, come back in the year's end and win that as well. But more recently, didn't fare too well in the Honeybee. And just don't know what the excuse was. She didn't take a lot of love in there, Nicole. I don't think she had the toughest of trips, and she just didn't seem like she could close. And I would have expected her to be able to do so with the fractions that were set early.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if the step up in class did her in there. She's had some very nice efforts, including that listed win in the year's end, but kind of sputtered in the Honeybee, which was her first start against graded company.
The 5, her laugh. We'll take a look at her most recent performance back on Sam F. Davis weekend at Tampa Bay Downs. And this is kind of the talking point, the main one. She is just not in a position where she's ever been in before. Everyone is in front of her. She's not even on the screen at this point. And then to kind of flip forward here, she's able to save ground because she's so far behind everyone else, but she has to work out a trip. And in terms of catching Lacara, I don't think anyone was going to with the way that she put in such a sensational performance. But this filly is still going to try here and make up some ground in these final stages, and she just comes up second best.
Yeah, and I do like the way that her laugh, and this was just her third career start, split horses, kind of professionally worked out that trip after her early trouble. I do think very highly of the filly that she was second to La Cara. And Whit Beckman has several Oaks hopefuls who he's plotting the course for, splitting them up to put them in their best position to earn their points to get into the Oaks. So I think it says something that, oh, this filly is here.
And next is Bless the Broken. This one for Will Walden, who is cross-entered also in the Bourbonnette Oaks. Now, if you look at her resume to this point, the one win, it came on the dirt on debut at Evangeline. And since then, she's been knocking out the door. She was third last time out in the Rachel Alexandra. But I thought the performance too back in the Silver Bullet Day, that was the performance I liked. We know, Simply Joking, you talked about the connections of Whitworth Beckman and what he's been able to do. That's one of his runners. She did a close from off of it on an off track, and I thought she did that pretty impressively.
Yeah, and earn her career high buyer in that effort, one who's going to be coming on if we get a strong pace here with the likes of Her Laugh and Ahava. Very interesting. She's based at Turfway right now, working right along right there, but she has the two placings, maybe her best efforts in the stakes series here. So we'll see what Will Walden chooses to do with her.
It'll be interesting too, because if she finishes second down at the fairgrounds or wins at Turfway Park, it's the same number of points, with 50 going to the winner and 50 going to the runner-up, though, down in Louisiana. The 7, Good Cheer, up next. We've talked about her. It's tough to say too much about her because her resume says it all, Nicole. She's going to try to make it 6 for 6 in her career. She's gotten very similar trips throughout, and just a filly that has a ton of talent, but we'll see if someone can try to get the best of her here.
Yeah, and just beautifully bred, Godolphin homebred by Medaglia d'Oro, sire of a couple of Oaks winners, out of a Grade 1 winner in Wedding Toast, and has won all of her starts by open lengths. Her smallest margin of victory, 2.5 lengths. Obviously likes this track with her impressive win last time out. That was one of a few races in which she's caught a short field, which we've discussed this spring during the Oaks prep season. We'll see what she works out here. She obviously has a big target on her back. And, we've said she doesn't necessarily need, it would be nice to win another Grade 2 race, earn the purse, come into the Oaks undefeated, but she does not need to win to progress to the larger goal.
Absolutely not. She doesn't really need to do anything at this point. The 8, Secret Faith, up next. We know Norman Stable. They are Derby dreaming with Coal Battle, trying to maybe put a filly into the mix. And that's the interesting part of this conversation. She's cross-entered in another spot earlier on the program, arguably a softer spot than this one. And a filly that's done a lot right. She's kind of approaching that $500,000 in earnings. She's done that against Louisiana breds. And I actually found her performance last time out at Delta to be pretty impressive. She had to work for it in the end. And I think it's worth noting, Nicole, when you look at her race at Delta, the configuration is different. When you talk about 7/8, you're not talking about 7/8 at most racetracks. She actually did get to go around 2 turns.
Yeah, this is a really intriguing horse. You can say, what is she beaten? But when you look at her resume, she's beaten some horses who came back and subsequently won. For what she's beaten, they're, as good as they can be, as deep as they can be. Her only loss came by a head. And looking at her speed figures, they do stack up against some of the logical contenders in this field.
And just wondered too, with the added distance going from 7/8, which is, as we mentioned, different configuration at Delta, to a mile and a 16th. Just wonder if there's some pace in here, if she could get the right trip. But obviously, this is a test of class, jumping up and getting away from Louisiana bred. So we'll see what she can do. And then rounding out the field, Nicole's the number 9 at Quickick, who I liked in the Honeybee, and then I didn't like the Honeybee once I saw it. For a performance from her, she made somewhat of a move. I don't think it was huge. And I just wonder, again, does her running style get her in trouble? That's sort of been the trend with her in her last 3.
Yeah, and I think you can sort of look at the honeybee in two ways. Number one, did she need the race in her 3-year-old debut, in which case she would be eligible to improve on Saturday? Or did she maybe not move forward from age 2 to 3 while some of the others, like Quiet Side, did? She was a very good 2-year-old, multiple grade 1 placed behind around 2 turns behind Immersive, who wound up the divisional champion.
We'll see what happens. Race number 11 this Saturday at the fairgrounds, the Fairground Oaks. We mentioned grade 2 event with Kentucky Oaks, points on the line. It's time for our top picks in this race. I'm not going to get creative. I wanted to so badly, Nicole, to try to beat Good Cheer because I love her and I think she's very talented, but I want to see her get tested. I just didn't know if this was the group to do so. And I see you're doing what I wanted to do. You are going to try to beat her in here and you're going to use Kenny McPeak's filly.
I will try to beat her solely because, as I said, this is a prep for her in the true sense of the word. There is no pressure on her to accrue points, to prove herself around 2 turns, anything of the like. I think if you look at the race and say this is a prep, perhaps she is still the best horse in the race. And, I understand what you're doing, not getting creative. If she wins, I will salute her as the unbeaten Kentucky Oaks favorite and a deserving favorite. That being said, I do think if you're going to take an opportunity to try to beat her, it is on Saturday. And I did use Goel's Delight, who, as I said, if you draw a race through Oaklawn, her resume at the fairgrounds is as good as anyone in here.
Yeah, very nice maiden score for her back on the day after Christmas in 2024. If I was going to try to beat Good Cheer, I did look at her laugh. As I mentioned, I thought she got a lot out of her last out effort, but I will use her underneath. Another horse that you use as well. So 7-5-2-3 for me, 2-7-5-3 for Nicole. Race 11 this Saturday at the fairgrounds, the Fairground Oaks. Good luck.